Welcome to CivilNet. My guest from Istanbul is Ozlem Dalkiran, who has been with Helsinki Citizens Assembly in Istanbul since its inception in 1990.
Yeah,
Welcome
1990.
to
Thank you. Thank you.
Since you've begun to work through Helsinki Citizens Assembly in the 90s.
Yeah, in 1990 when we started, talking about establishing the association of Helsinki Citizens Assembly, which was initiated in '89 in Prague, with this big assembly.
Of trying to protect human rights, civic rights, civil rights.
After the Iron Wall, yeah, exactly.
Ozlem, we sit in Yerevan, and although there are many things about Turkey that we don't like, that worry us, that concern us.
So do I.
So do you. But there's one thing that we look at with admiration, with a little envy, and that is that elections work, that you are really electing the people who are going to lead you. In that context, is the work of Helsinki, the work of a human rights organization, aimed at convincing the governors, the policymakers, that they think they need to do things differently? Or is your work aimed at the public in order to get them to defend their own rights? Which way do you go?
Both ways. I think all human rights organizations, or non-governmental organizations, I would say, should aim the same thing. You cannot just aim at the public or the decision makers or opinion leaders. You have to work at all levels, of course, if you have the capacity, I would say, so that it would do the chain reaction. Luckily we have the experience and the resources, at least the human resources and the will, to lobby the government or the politicians, if not the government, to change the attitudes, to change the way of conduct. But also we need the public support or public opinion change in the mindset of the people, so that they would push the governments or push the politicians to act differently. Because it's not just 5 people doing that.
When we think of Turkey and we think of human rights, we think of a couple of obvious things. We think about the Kurdish minority. Mm-hmm. We think about journalists and other professionals in the freedom of expression sphere. Now more and more we think other minorities. Should we also be thinking about immigrants? Should we think about Syrians?
Yes.
Is that an area that you've now begun to work in?
Yes. Actually, Helsinki Citizens Assembly has been working on refugees and migrants for a long time now. We have a program called Refugee Advocacy and Support Program, which helps refugees who tries to get refugees or refugee status.
Where do they come from?
Ranging from Iraq, Afghanistan to African countries, from Nigeria to Burkina Faso, wherever you want to say. It's a transit area. I mean, it's not a place where refugees can settle, because we don't still have a law on that, and we have a geographical limitation in Turkey about refugee status, which says if you are a refugee seeking status in Turkey, you have to be a citizen of a Council of Europe city. Yeah, it is a long story. You don't want to waste on that. Yeah, you don't want to waste time on that. But what Turkey provides is a temporary protection.
And with Syrians, is it being temporary?
Well, Turkey has this weird practice, which is convenient but not on the rights-based approach, which is like we invite them as guests, saying the government. Like during the Bosnia War, the Bosnians were welcomed as guests in Turkey. Stay as long as you want, but at the end you don't have the refugee status because it brings some rights,
What about migrant workers? Because there are, of course, many Armenians there as migrant workers. What are the issues there, not just with the Armenians, but generally?
Well, unfortunately, the migrant issue is most of them are undocumented minors. I am a migrant. So that means they are, in the eyes of the government, illegal. We don't want to use that word. They use that word. It's illegal migrants they call. So, as you would remember, Tayyip Erdogan our prime minister kept using this, as a stick against the
normalization.
It was a threat. It was a threat. No, we can deport them anytime we want. We have this.
Which you can.
Yeah, exactly, because they are undocumented. So they don't have any rights. Migrant workers don't have any rights because in Turkey, if the only migrant workers I would say are the CEOs or whatever, which have papers, and they are most welcome because they pay, residence fees and whatever. Besides that, any migrants who came to Turkey out of desperation, let's say, out of poverty, they are paperless and they are working undocumented, which are open to exploitation of the Turkish.
Is it fair to say most of them are in Istanbul?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that they really are simply there for work purposes?
Not all. I mean, okay, migrants and refugees, asylum seekers are totally two different
categories,
unfortunately, according to international law. In our eyes, they are the same. They are here out of, they wanted to leave their country for survival of one kind or another. So, but of course, it's easier to support the refugee rights, unfortunately, because you have an international law, you have obligations. There's there's a convention that Turkey is a part of. So that's easier to defend. But with the migrants, they are disposable, unfortunately. I mean, that's.
Whose opinion is the majority? The government's opinion that I can do as I wish, or Helsinki Citizens Assembly opinion that these are people who are here in desperation and we need to do something for them? The public goes which way?
The public goes according to the agenda, unfortunately. Okay, or let's say if there's a big population of refugees even in a city, then they feel uneasy. And because the government provides aid to them, they think their tax goes to, useless people.
It's ironic, no? Because there are so many Turkish refugees in European countries.
Exactly, yeah.
In the exact reverse situation.
Yeah, that's part of the advocacy work. But unfortunately, this has been long ago. In the coup d'etat in 1980, there was a big flux of political asylum seekers from Turkey and accepted. Then in the 90s, another big flux of refugees, predominantly Kurdish refugees, went to Europe. But it's been forgotten now because they are Europeans now. It's been forgotten. Not many people remember that we have refugees living abroad.
Helsinki Citizens Assembly also has Armenian programs. Yes. Armenia. How did Helsinki begin to work with Armenians?
Well, Turkey is a very diverse country. I mean, although it's very nationalistic, whatever, we have loads of minority groups, both by the Lausanne Treaty as non-Muslims, let's say, but also ethnic groups. Which
everybody doesn't always remember this, of course.
Yeah. I mean, Anatolia, not Turkey maybe, but Anatolia is the cradle of civilization. It's like the motto, let's say. So, I mean, all the Armenian kingdom was there, the Kurdish kingdoms were there. So it was the Turks who came later to Anatolia. So we are actually the migrants in Turkey.
That's okay. It is what it is.
Exactly.
So the Armenians?
So we have loads of minorities, and Armenians are one of them. And so Helsinki Citizens Assembly, one of its working areas, let's say, are the minority rights, which are in question all the time in Turkey and problematic. And of course, including that, Armenians in Turkey is one of the biggest.
And we're talking about the Armenians who have been there. We're not talking about Armenian migrants from Armenia.
No. Yeah, the Turkish citizens, let's say, citizens of Turkey, Armenian citizens of Turkey.
The ones who've been there for hundreds of years.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
So how did that work begin?
And Hrant Dink still is actually our member. And of course, he was very eager. We have other minority group members as Helsinki members, and we had all these funny, jokishly struggles among, let's say, a Kurdish friend and Hrant saying, no, Armenia issues is we have to work more on Armenian issue, we have to work on Kurdish issue. No, we have to work on whatever, you know. So he was a pushing force actually for us, and he was a very important source of information, because, you know, however you intend to be equal, you know, wise, let's say, you cannot judge the issue as well as a person who is in the issue. So he was a very good guiding voice for us, and he always put us in the right track and guided us on how to deal with the issue, what would be the best, for the best impact, most impact. So yeah, that's how we actually became more visible, because of course he has his own circle and he has own voice, so he was kind of boosting up our voice.
Do you find that with the changes in Turkish society over this last decade, that the Armenian community too has become more prepared and willing to advocate for their own lost rights?
Well, unfortunately, after the assassination of Hrant Dink, the Armenian community became more vocal, especially the young people.
You don't mean unfortunately, you mean ironically.
No, unfortunately, the assassination, I'm saying.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, yeah. And also, unfortunately, because Hrant Dink was in favor of advocating their rights, and it didn't happen. So it had to be after his assassination. That's unfortunate also. But yes, it's a good thing, of course, that we see more and more organizations, even, you know, initiatives, associations that are promoting and advocating the Armenian community rights and culture in Turkey right now. Yeah, it is more, they are more vocal.
And finally, your engagement in Armenia. You work with the Helsinki Citizens Assembly here, which is now run by Artur Saguns, and in the old days there was also Anahit Bayandur.
Yeah, Helsinki Citizens Assembly in nature is not an organization which has a headquarter and has branches. So all of us in Armenia, in Manatsor, in Istanbul, we are all independent, but of course we have this network continuing for like 20 plus years now. So yes, we are as much as we can, as if we find the opportunity to physically work together, yes we do. But besides that, through this network, yes, we are working together.
And what do? Do you have exchange programs?
Well, we don't have exchange programs, but what we do is, you know, if they find a way to be able to come to Turkey, that's the first step. When we come here, that's the first step. And it's a constant communication to be able to kind of build up programs, activities, actions together. And unfortunately, very rarely you can do that due to funding, you know.
So it's basically civil society professionals, activists that come and go.
Yeah,
but you also encourage youth, young people.
Of course, I mean, we have this summer camp thing which we had.
Which you call?
Yavaş Gamats.
One more time.
Yavaş Gamats. And the name comes from Hrant Dink also. I mean, it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was his suggestion. Why don't we call it Yavaş Gamats? Because we will slowly build up the company.
Because in Turkish you say Yavaş Yavaş.
And
in Armenian we say Gamats Gamats.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like there are only 3 languages which you repeat, you know, like
really?
Yavaş Yavaş, Gamats Gamats, and Şuvay Şuvay in Arabic. It tells the nature of the people that we do it slowly. So yeah, Helsinki Citizens Assembly all around the world has put effort to make summer camps, bringing youth together.
Why?
It is I don't want to say that, but you know, young people are open to new ideas, open to new friendships, open to change more than we do. So bringing polar parts, let's say, together and involve them in not teaching, training, whatever, but spending time together with their prejudices, with their enmities even, and get over with them, not through our training, but just being together, enjoy each other. So that's the idea, and it worked really well with Armenia, Turkey, with this Yavaş Gamat. So we are hoping to have others continuing, and it's not just Armenia, Turkey, but in Turkey recently we did a summer camp, let's say, with Kurds and Turks, and believe me, that was tough. So that's the idea.
So it's not easy.
No.
Anywhere.
No.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I feel better, but thank you.
Well, we shall overcome.
Ozlem Dalkiran
Yep.
of Helsinki Citizens Assembly Istanbul, talking about what isn't easy, is teaching people to get along.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for watching us on CivilNet.